public comment. Anyone with multiple items as well. So that will be Mr. Wayne Spindler, and you'll have 2 minutes to speak on items 1, 5, and 6, and then a minute for public comment.
Yes, we have additional cards. For the record, there's no quorum. Illegal violation of Brown Act, yes. So, number 1, the Walk Plus program we support. There are many obese people who work in these 2 buildings here. I notice when I go to lunch. More walking makes you ambulatory. Ambulatory means you won't need an ambulance when you can't get your fat ass up the stairs and down the stairs in case of an emergency. Because this building is very dangerous, according to John Walsh, HollywoodHighlands.com, yes. So we get to the targeted hiring and strategic workforce. We like to call that the big lie. Yes, you're always promising L.A. Canyon, you're promising General Jeff that you're going to local hire people out of Skid Row, out of poverty. But we know that nobody ever gets those jobs, except if they're on an H-1B visa and they happen to be Korean or speak Mandarin. So if you want a good job, you better learn how to speak an Asian language or convert to Judaism. Yes, that's very important. And then the Budget and Finance Committee has fucked with item number 3. You used to be. Oh, I think you're back on the Budget and Finance Committee. See, as everybody knows, Herb Wesson kicked Paul Koretz's ass off of Budget and Finance to punish him. You know why? Because at the Metropolitan Water District, he was funneling all that green grass shit to his clientele and got caught in an ethics investigation. Yes, LATimes.com. And then number 4, a substitute and in lieu position. It doesn't exist. This is not a real job in item 4. So if you want to pay my friend Mr. Spender the $200,000, he will gladly accept your in lieu position so he can stay home, eat, and watch TV at home rather than being here. Unfreeze resolution on number 5. Vacant when a vacancy occurs. What the hell is item 5 all about? It sounds really cool. Item 6 is a moo. Moo. Yes, like the sound of an animal. A moo is America's little trick. It's the city attorney's trick. Vote no. And finally, not to be a pain in the ass, but have a very nice Rosh Hashanah weekend. We'll see you next week for more fun.
Thank you. And you have a minute of general comments if you would like.
Oh, that's good. Okay, so we'll take it over. Same thing, different day. I think you got to have more than one member of the quorum.
Yeah, that's not correct, by the way.
Really? So quorum is one person? I like this. Do you like it?
Yay!
So that's what we'll do. Now we'll have one member quorums instead of 3. Isn't that great?
Very good.
And then what do you want to say?
Well, honestly, since Mitchell Englander's not here, he doesn't know shit about animal care, and Curran Price knows a lot about animal care. Did you know he has a chicken coop across from his front door in his fake apartment on Woodbine Avenue off of Jefferson? Yes. He doesn't really live there, but he parks his former state Senate car in the parking lot to make you think he lives there. Have a good weekend. Yes.
All right, now we're going to go to item number 1.
Item 1 is a motion, Corretz Wesson, regarding initiating a competition among city council offices to participate in the Walk Plus program.
Hi, I'm Stephen Montagna. I'm here to represent the Personnel Department. This report that we submitted is in response to the motion to initiate a walking competition among the council offices. And as we indicate in the report, we think this is a wonderful idea. And after kind of thinking through some of the logistics of what would be involved, we think the optimal approach would be to launch this just after we conclude the competition that is currently underway citywide that ends at the end of October. So we have a 52-week lease with the contractor that is they're hosting the on-site walking competition platform. So that gives us the opportunity to run multiple campaigns throughout the year. And actually, we think if we were to run a separate council competition that would immediately follow this one, it would be optimal. It would sort of keep the visibility of the program, but it would also give us some time in between the current citywide competition and the next one that we launch. Over the next few weeks, what we can do is put together what the parameters of the program would look like, and then reach out to the council offices to coordinate that with them and give them the information, so that there would be plenty of advanced communication before the competition launches.
And how will the ongoing process be in terms of initial publicity and standings and publicizing? Because hopefully the fact that the council offices themselves are involved will create a little extra interest and get more of the workforce involved eventually.
Right, absolutely. So we'll as part of this, we'll come up with some ways to share this information citywide. We do think it does provide a great opportunity to demonstrate the commitment of city leadership, to the program, not just the walking program, but to the wellness program as a whole.
And with the walking program, long term, will it get beyond just teams so that individuals can also participate in it?
Yes, yeah. I mean, so one of the things that we're learning a lot from the current competition, and so although we have this lease right now for this particular sort of off-the-shelf product, I think we'll be looking down the road to other options and sort of ways that we might want to customize it. There's certain limitations that are built in with the current platform, so we want to sort of run through this campaign, make that assessment, and then see where we want to go from here.
Again, and for the record, we now have a quorum with Mr. Price present. We're on item number 1. So I don't know if you have any additional questions on our walking wellness program with the City Council.
No, I'm very excited about the program, though, Mr. Chairman, and I'm going to be participating and encouraging my staff to do the same.
And one of the things I just wanted to mention, we presently have about approximately 350 teams that have registered, and over 1,800 participants. So that's actually beyond what we were hoping for. And of course, there's still time this week for individuals to register. So we think it's an outstanding response, and we're really pleased with the results.
Mr. Chairman, question: is this the first year we've done this?
This is the first time we've ever done a citywide walking program. Yes.
And we're clearly more focused on wellness as a city than we have been previously.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is part of a much broader campaign to engage the workforce on wellness. So this is just the beginning.
And generally, we don't necessarily have the healthiest working population. So the hope is both for the health of individual employees and greater productivity and hopefully less expense in terms of experience with healthcare, et cetera, that this will just be a win-win-win for the city if we can make this all be as successful as it can.
Absolutely.
So we appreciate your good work thus far.
Thank you.
And if there are no other questions or comments, we'll approve this motion without objection.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 2 and 3 together.
Item 2 is a report from the Personnel Department regarding implementation, benchmark, and hiring goals for the Targeted Local Hiring and Strategic Workforce Development Task Force. And item 3 are reports from the Personnel Department, City Administrative Officer, Economic Workforce Development Department, and Office of Finance regarding the fiscal year 17-18 Targeted Local Hiring Working Group.
I don't know if we have an extra chair, someone that we're in the audience, but if Ms. Goldberg would like to join us up here, I'm sure we would have some questions for you as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry to take someone's chair.
So I wonder if we could start with personnel giving an overview of your report.
Thank you. Vincent Cordero, Personnel Department. In May 2017, as part of the fiscal year 2017-18 budget hearings and deliberations, Council instructed the Personnel Department to provide a report back regarding the implementation, benchmarks, and hiring goals of the Targeted Local Hire Working Group and Strategic Workforce Development Task Force. Additionally, the Personnel Department was instructed to research a comparison between the number of employees hired through the civil service exam process to the number hired through TLH in the 6 entry-level classifications currently utilized by the TLH program since the launch of the program in February 2017. The Personnel Department has met implementation objectives and is on track to meet benchmarks and goals as provided in the LOA that was signed between the City and Coalition of Unions on December 8, 2015. So the implementation goal was to establish a strategic workforce development task force and target local hire working group to develop a plan to provide job opportunities to the residents of the City of LA and underserved communities or groups. So both groups have been established and the TLH program was fully launched on June 6, 2017. In terms of hiring goals, per the LOA, the city commits to a goal of hiring 5,000 civilian employees by the end of fiscal year 17-18. For the period starting July 1st, 2015 and ending July 31st, 2017, a total of 4,547 civilian employees have been hired of the 5,000 goal. The number reflects those employees who are newly enrolled in the LA Well Civilian Benefits Program as reported by the city's third-party administrator, Mercer Human Resources Services. Targeted local hire program hires are included within that number. Personnel Department also completed a comparison between civil service hires and TLH hires from the start of the program and when it was available to departments between February 17 and July 31st, 2017. There were a total of 343 hires in the 6 entry-level classifications utilized by TLH. 256 were civil service appointments and 87 were TLH hires. So this represents 25% of the hires being from TLH. The Personnel Department will continues to receive applications for the Target Local Hire Program. We also continue to work with our referral agencies and departments to better refine the program based on feedback and suggestions. And we'll also continue to provide updates to this committee as we move along. Thank you.
Thank you. And if we could ask the CAO to also give us a brief summary of your report as well.
Good afternoon. Janelle Irving with the Office of the CAO. During the deliberations of the 2017-18 budget, the Council adopted a motion directing all city departments to report with specific information to assist the work of the Targeted Local Hire Working Group and the Strategic Workforce Development Task Force. On August 2nd, 2017, this committee instructed the CAO to collect and compile the requested data in an effort to expedite the process. Each department reported to us, and our office compiled the information requested in the motion. First, we have provided a list of all vacant positions as of August 5th, 2017, as reported by departments. Secondly, we provided a list of all as-needed positions. This was determined by the number of individuals that worked during pay period 3 from July 20th to August 3rd, 2017. And finally, a list of all contracts for services for which entry-level civil service positions could otherwise provide a significant portion of the scope of work is included. So our office compiled the data, and we'd be glad to take any questions that you may have.
So it looks like we're only looking at a short period of time where this was actually implemented. So we're looking at between February and the end of June, where there were 343 positions that could have been hired through through this process, and only 87 were, so 25%. Why is it as low as that, and how could we improve this process to have higher numbers? I'll put that question to personnel to start.
So we provided a breakdown on attachment A. I do want to point out that a few of these departments have submitted active requests, so even though they have 0, we're hoping that those numbers will go up. Additionally, we have seen an uptick in other departments that have submitted requests in the past. So hopefully, as we move along, we'll see additional hires in these targeted classifications. Additionally, we're looking at expanding this to other classifications. So we've been talking within the working group at opening this up to other classifications besides the original 6. So hopefully with these efforts and the expansion of the pool as we move along and the usage of it, we'll be able to see more usage of it.
If I might add, I think it's difficult to change behaviors. If you have a civil service list and you've always gone to the civil service list, you're still going to the civil service list. That's why out of the 343 hires, 256, I think, are civil service hires, because we've always done it that way. We know that's how bureaucracies work. We've always done it that way. That we have had 87 means that some people are considering changing that behavior. Okay? And what we want to do is to find ways to encourage them to change that behavior. So, for example, we're beginning to meet with not only general managers, but some of us in the task force intend to meet with the general manager and the HR person in the department to make sure everybody's getting the same information. This is quicker than civil service hires. Also, if you're hiring one of the former gang members, you're getting money to pay for some of the expenses, not only of training, but of their salary because of the settlement of that case. So there are advantages to doing that. But I think what we're seeing is basically people have their toe in the water, and we're trying to get them to get their whole body wet. And I think it's just going to take encouragement and incentives and time. The other issue that we've run into is that there are a very large number of jobs within the public works domain that are on contract workers, contract hires, call center people, all kinds of people, people doing street services, all kinds of people. We think that it would make more sense to begin to phase out the contract workers who are working for a for-profit organization and therefore, frankly, are more expensive than doing it in-house. And begins encouraging them to phase that out, and as they phase that out, to use target local hire to replace them because it's immediate. They don't have to wait for a long time to get that hire. So those are things that would help. But I think a lot of it is that people are getting their feet wet. We want them to dip a little deeper. And some of them have actually said to us that they have money in their salary budget but not position authority. So we're looking into some of those issues as well.
Now, I know we had some discussion at the very beginning of this process, and I know I and my office suggested that we do trainings for all the GMs on how to accept folks and why they should do it. Did we ever actually do those kinds of trainings?
I don't think so.
We did purchase diversity and inclusion training. We did have outreach with the personnel officers to go through the program, and that's what we've done so far in terms of that.
So do we ever have anyone sit down with each GM and walk through the process and walk through the value and success that some folks have had with this program?
So initially, when we were doing the ED15 succession plans, our general manager and staff met with each general manager to go over, at the initial stages of the Target Local Hire program, what it would have to offer. So we did take the time to meet with each general manager in that setting. That's when that information was shared.
And you were able to reach all the GMs or just some of the GMs?
I believe we met almost.
Yeah, most.
Most?
I think there was a couple that we couldn't connect with. Yes, we met with, I would say, probably 38 out of the 40. There was a couple that we couldn't match up with, but we did speak with either a general manager or a personnel officer or an assistant general manager of each department. Talk about the succession and the Targeted Local Hire program, and to be looking forward to using that program to fill their positions as part of their succession plans.
Is there any way we could be more aggressive and make this the standard, and that if a GM or a department wanted to hire outside the targeted local hiring system, that they had to make a request rather than the opposite direction where they assume they just do it the way they've always done it, and the targeted local hire is the outlier in a way? Do we know if that would legally be something we could do?
I couldn't tell you whether the legal portion of that, if that was something that would go through a motion or some kind of action by the council. I'm going to, I can't speak for the operating departments, but I'm sure they would have their thoughts on how they could bring on a number of individuals. These individuals that we're bringing on are really motivated. We've had positive reports about how they're performing and their attitudes towards work, but some of them don't have experience in these particular functions, so they may take more time to train them, and I'm not sure how much a department can absorb all of these positions to be able to provide the kind of training that's needed to perform at the level required.
Although if most of them are entry level, presumably everybody has to have roughly the same amount of training. So
The way the requirements are written through the civil service process and the testing, yes, they all meet a certain level, but through this program, we're bringing people in that may not have any experience in that particular function. That's what the focus is to give these opportunities to individuals that may not have the background that would otherwise meet requirements of civil service.
And in terms of our pool of people, Ms. Goldberg, what are the numbers currently in terms of people that are available
We
to
have
us now?
2,300 applicants as of July 31st, of whom about 940 have actually had an interview, which is pretty good, and of which 87 people were hired.
So the 900 are people we could
We
Hired
got
now.
2,304 people ready to go.
So basically, all the people we could possibly need.
We
for
will
the
never run
foreseeable
out of
future.
people, Mr. Chairman, because what we've done is we've only been using the community-based organizations, about 100 of which we've met with, as suppliers. We have not opened this up to the general public, and we haven't done that because you don't want to open it up and then have no jobs. Then you
Yeah,
get
we probably already have too many people in the pool.
Well,
so
no, I think we have about the right amount unless people actually start to hire, in which case we have no problem finding people who will meet the criteria for these entry-level jobs. We have no problem doing that. We have tried to figure out, and we're guessing, about what the balance is between the number of applicants and your chances of ever getting an interview, because we think if you never get an interview, you're quickly going to think this is just, a scam, right? And we've been through that before, they say. So we've held back recruiting because we have about 2,300 people in the system, and we believe that right now, because the trickle is a trickle, that's plenty. If that trickle
Definitely for a
became a
while.
river, we would open it up much further, and we would have no trouble getting more applicants, none whatsoever.
And interestingly, I've gotten more inquiries externally. So there are businesses that would like to have ability to access our list. So I don't know how much thought we've given to that process once we get our own process humming a little better.
Yeah, we've actually been exploring that option. So we've been working with EWDD to share the participants' information if they've agreed to share their information for job opportunities. So, for example, we had an LAUSD bus training program, and about 30 of our program participants attended that, and about 4 were hired. So,
Right.
and we also worked with Council Member Harris Dawson's office with his job fair, and
Right.
they reached out to those individuals too. So we've been trying to explore other options too.
Very good.
Mr. Chairman, let me just say, first of all, thank you for the efforts. This is an exciting opportunity, I think, to, plug into a pool of workers that normally get overlooked.
Right.
And possibly getting some good jobs with benefits. We talked about expanding the classifications too, from the 6. Any thoughts of what that expansion looks like?
Well-
And also you mentioned the pool that's created with the contracting out.
Yes, I think
and how
that's.
do we kind of get a handle on that and maybe start bringing that in a real
I think
organized kind
that's
of way?
the immediate fix. The immediate fix is to begin to encourage departments that have contracted because there was no ability to hire during the Great Recession to begin to end those contracts as they come up and replace them with these folks because they're ready to go, and if they just tell us how many they need, we'll go recruit the rest for them. So I think that's the immediate fix for some of this, is to try, and actually I'm going to have a conversation to inform the Public Works Commission. Mr. Cordero and I are going next week, I believe it is, Monday, to meet with the commission to make sure they're aware of the program and to encourage them to think about that as a policy decision to reduce or end contracting out except for very short-term as needed positions. Because right now we have a lot of people who have been working for the city for years on contracts. And our view was, well, okay, that certainly may have been necessary when you couldn't hire. But you can now, and we'd like to see that shift occur.
What about the expansion of classifications? What else
We've
are we
looked
thinking about?
with, I met with the CAO's office and Mr. Kuhn from OE, from Operating Engineers. They are very close to being able to open up a program which would be a apprenticeship program within the city that some of our current applicants could actually meet the entry criteria to go. And of course, we also are looking at construction trades, but that's more complicated because that involves standards set in Sacramento, whereas OE has some Sacramento certification, but it doesn't have salary specifications, so we could work that out more quickly, and that's what we're working on there. We have not looked at other positions than that yet, though.
We do have animal care tech we're looking at.
Yes.
So we met with Animal Services, and we also met with SEIU with our subcommittee, and we're looking at creating a bridge class between vocational worker and animal care tech.
And certainly with the contracting out part, our experience has been in a number of arenas that our contractors do a less good job, to be polite, than our city staff when we make sure they're well trained. So I think that would also be a more positive experience for our constituents.
And we would hope that the council would consider ways to incentivize people to think about doing that. I don't know what that would be. I'll leave that in your capable hands.
Other questions for folks up here? If not, let's move to having folks from some of our targeted departments, building and safety, housing, library and rec and parks, to talk about their participation rates and what their plans are to increase those.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. You can have your
And we may call you back up. So.
Oh, okay. Won't go away.
So whomever would like to start.
I'll start.
Welcome.
Good afternoon. Mike Shaw, General Manager. I'm joined by my Chief of Staff, AP Diaz. So we committed at the beginning of this process, and I want to give a number of facts about Rec and Parks because I honestly think that we dove into this program before this program existed. At any one given time, we have between 4,500 and 7,000 part-time employees. Of those employees, nearly 80% of those employees are in the Tier 1, Tier 2 classification kind of inside of Los Angeles. I mean, we are a local hire department. We have over 1,400 staff, full-time staff in the department. That's down from about 2,200 from 2008. The classifications for which we were looked at is gardener caretaker, which is an entry-level position, as well as administrative clerk. Gardener caretaker is where we make probably the best, have the best opportunity for this type of program. But as a gardener caretaker, we currently have, of those like I said, or any one time we have as many as 4,500 part-time employees or more. About 900 of them are what we call SPAs, or kind of part-time maintenance employees who we've used to supplement our workforce. Again, the majority of them live within the Tier 1, Tier 2 employing areas that we're targeting. We have had, as stated by Ms. Goldberg, of the 900 people that are ready, half of those are Rec and Parks employees. We've sent 400 successfully from that part-time program over to workforce centers to sign up, because some of these part-time employees have worked for the department for 4, 5, 10 years, waiting to get a full-time job. But because we want to get the credit from the target, because we feel they are local, we've asked them to voluntarily go over and sign up. So we've had 400 employees successfully sign up inside of the program. So that leaves us, well, why haven't you done more? So we've hired since the hiring freeze was lifted in 2015, we've hired about 89 new gardener caretakers. So this program came in about a year later, 2016. And of that, we've only been able to get 7 of those come out of this program into our full-time workforce as a gardener caretaker. So we currently have, council members, about 60 vacancies in our gardener caretakers positions, and I can tell you right now that even though there's not a hiring freeze, there is an artificial one, and it's called salary savings rates. So, I think that's a question you need to ask each department. I mean, I can't necessarily, I could hire 60, but I can't afford to hire. I don't have the budget to hire. In last year's budget, thanks to, we almost lost all of our vacancies in gardener caretakers as a result of the city's budget. We got those positions back, but we did not get the full funding back. So although we have the authorities, we got some of the money back, but we're having to keep them vacant anyway because of our salary savings rates. So a lot of the things that, that you would see in departments that are preventing them from hiring are at least that with Rec and Parks. Now, I would tell you that of the roughly 400 gardener caretakers I have in a department, I probably need somewhere between 600 and 650, but I don't have those authorities. So in order for us to really to make a dent in this, and as you've seen in the recent audit on our restrooms, those are gardener caretakers that help us keep those things clean. So we do this day in and day out. We've done it for decades, hiring locally. We're just now trying to get credit for it by getting those employees that will become full-time hires to sign up, and we successfully have got 400 of them ready to go in that program.
And you intend to hire through this program?
Absolutely. So that's the reason why we've been steering, because we want to hire our full-time. This is something that was talked about earlier in this program. We want to hire from our part-time workforce. You talked about experience. Well, there's a certain amount of experience inside of working in a park and training that we do on our part-time workforce. So obviously, with so many people in that part-time workforce, from a business perspective, it makes sense to hire from that workforce. So but because most of those part-timers already qualified to be, in this program, we've been getting them signed up. And like I said, we've got almost half of them signed up successfully. So we should be, as we hire. Now, I can't say that we're doing a major hiring just because of our salary savings rate went up another 1.5% last year in the budget. We're probably only going to be able to make a dent if somebody retires. We're going to replace them, like if a gardener caretaker that's likely how those positions will be filled.
And so the salary savings is sort of a little bit of a backdoor managed hiring? Because
very
you're required to provide the salary
it's called
savings.
for what it is. It very much says you have a limited budget. Departments I can't speak for any of them. I can only speak for Rec and Parks. We're walking a very fine line this year on our salaries. We're watching very carefully how many people we hire because, we took a $500,000 hit in our salary, one-time hit in the budget and our labor and our salaries last year in the budget. We went up another 1.5%. A lot of our positions aren't funded, as part of it. So there's just a lot of issues that go into it. That's really, for us, I'm not going to speak for other departments, but I would venture to say it's similar. So as we look to see how many people we can hire, we really need to look at, what's happening as a result of the bigger picture, which is inevitably the city's budget.
But it's your clear intention that when openings
Yes.
occur in these categories,
Absolutely.
that you'll hire
Absolutely.
them.
This pipeline you have represents full-time, doesn't include part-time, correct? This is just full-time? Or
Well, we don't get,
do you-
I mean, as part of this, the targeted local hiring, you don't, I mean, I don't think the part-timers are included in that. If we were, you would have reached 5,000 already. So, I mean, we hire a lot of people. In the summer, this last summer, we had over 6,000 part-time, you know, we're seasonal, so it fluctuates on how many, but the almost 80% of those people are local hires. They're not, we hire from the communities. I mean, a lot of our, you know, it's recreation staff. It's not just maintenance staff, it's recreation staff, our lifeguards, our, you know, camp counselors. I think people forget how many people we hire every year as part of our operation. And if part-timers were in there, council member, your program would be done because we would have hired all those people already.
Right, but there's a big difference because obviously we're trying to change people's lives with these hires. So you hire someone part-time for a summer, you're not guaranteeing that they're out of the homeless population.
No, we're not. And it's not, I mean, I would say our seasonal, you know, that's a little bit, but, you know, even currently, not on non-seasonal, we're still at over 4,000 part-timers. I mean, when you look at, you know, and 1,000 of them are in the maintenance, they work, and a lot of them are half-time, so they're getting benefits. But the department needs full-time staff. What we've done is use part-time staff and half-time staff to supplement our workforce. That's essentially what we've done to be able to manage the park system because for so many years we weren't able to hire, and because, you know, we lack now the number of full-time positions. We have no other way other than through the budget to continue to ask, and I will be asking again for more gardener caretakers as I do every year. And, you know, we need more full-time positions.
Mike Balakowitz, Library Department. The library has participated in the targeted local hiring, hiring the office trainees in lieu of the administrative clerk positions in our branch libraries. We just recently onboarded 8 office trainees through the targeted local hiring. The feedback that I had received from the individuals that, you know, sat on the interview panels when part of the hiring process was very positive. The candidates overall were very, very good. We believe we'll be successful in performing the duties of the position. As of right now, we have an additional 20 full-time administrative clerk positions that we would like to fill through the targeted local hiring
sorry, how
program.
many?
20.
20?
Right, that we will be using the targeted local hiring program to fill those vacancies as well. So, and we envision this is our plan moving forward, that as administrative clerk positions open up, we will first go to the targeted local hiring.
Very good.
Lisa Mowry, LA Sanitation Chief Financial Officer. We have vacancies in 3 of the classifications we're discussing today. In the administrative clerk series, we currently have 4 vacancies. We are planning to use the targeted local hiring program for that. One reason we haven't used it to date is similar to Rec and Parks, although on a much smaller scale, we do have quite a few part-time employees. And we had several part-time admin clerks who were on the civil service list. So we wanted to give them a chance to transition into the full-time positions. Now that they've been offered that opportunity, our plan is to use targeted local hiring for the remaining vacancies we have. For custodian, we currently have 4 vacancies. We plan to fill all of those through the targeted local hiring program. And in the maintenance labor category, that's another one where currently we are filling full-time positions from our existing part-time workforce. However, we do have new positions in this current fiscal year where we have 6 months of funding, and we will be hiring in January. And we intend to go to the targeted local hiring program. We've got approximately a dozen positions that will have funding in January, and we'll use the TLH program for that.
Very good. Do we have anyone here from Building and Safety or Housing ready to speak to your hiring practices? Okay. Please.
Come on up.
Anyone from GSD present and ready to talk about this? I would like to start.
So we don't have the numbers that everybody else has. We're a smaller department, but
I'm sorry, airport?
the Harbor Department.
Harbor, I'm
So Tish Lawrence on, I'm the personnel director from the Harbor Department. So we actually have a small number of part-time employees, but based on the mayoral executive 15 that asked us to migrate part-time to full-time, we started doing that in April of 2016, and we were able to move over 23 part-time people to full-time employment. 10 of those meet the targeted local hire criteria, so we would love to get credit for those 10. We just are filling an office trainee position, so that will be our first through targeted local hire. We have a job offer pending. We were very pleased with the pool and with the expedited process that was put in place. In addition to that, we have 6 other additional vacancies that we will be hiring through the targeted local hire. One of them is a garage assistant, which I heard at the last meeting that no one else was going to be able to use that class, but we're going to be able to fill that.
Very good.
Okay, my name is Deanne McCoy-Snurl. I'm the Assistant HR Director at Los Angeles World Airports. We've been pretty successful with the Targeted Local Hiring Program, and our success is mainly due to our partnership with the YWCA LA Job Corps. We've hired trainees who've timed out of foster care, previously incarcerated, ex-gang members, and LGBTQ. Secondly, because of the mayor's initiative to hire veterans, we partnered with a company called Edge for Vets. Through that program, we've hired veterans in trainee classifications for custodian and gardener caretaker. Most importantly, though, after LAWA onboards the trainees, much of our success is attributed to our maintenance division managers. Our managers conduct a 4-day training orientation that provides the employees with job expectations, rideshare information, giving them information regarding means of transportation to and from work, whether it's carpool, vanpool, or Metro Transit. Policies on the employee parking program, because we also provide our employees who work in the terminals with parking carts that park in the parking structures at the airport. And training and proper use of chemicals and tools. Safety practices, we also give them a tour of the worksite visit in the terminals, and also proper care of uniforms, and most importantly, the importance of good attendance. That seems to work for us. We've exceeded our benchmark of 10% in hiring. Moving forward, our annual goal is 11% hiring of the targeted local hiring. Thus far, we've hired roughly 70. We've hired 63 in custodial, 2 in gardener caretaker, and 5 in office trainee admin clerk positions.
All right, and you're clearly our example of success for this program. You've clearly had good success in hiring and good results that we know about. The only area I want to ask you a question about, if you're hiring veterans specifically and not using targeted local hire, are there veterans in the targeted local hire program that could fill both those needs at the same time?
Sure, yes. We are using the targeted local hiring. We're using that as well.
But I mean, for veterans specifically, is there a way that you could exclusively use targeted local hire to find your veterans and thereby? So I would encourage you to move to that, because that would be an extra way to find a few people. So rather than having to contract or work with another agency, I think would be an easy way to keep hiring through that program.
Exactly.
But you've done an incredible job that we hope all the other departments will emulate.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Hats off, Mr. Chairman. Hats off to Airport, and I was taken by the fact that you're partnering with some community-based organizations, and I wonder, Mr. Chairman, to what extent that has been an important component in their success, working with the Y and a number of other organizations who are, I guess, feeding candidates to you, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
In addition to the in-service that you provide once folks are on board.
Yes.
Well, good afternoon, council members. Nazario Salceda, Director of the Bureau of Street Services. And I'm very glad to report that the Bureau of Street Services has utilized over 50 vacant entry-level positions, including maintenance laborer, maintenance and construction helper, tree surgeon assistant. We have used those vacancies to hire approximately 50 entry-level people from the TLH staff and from the vocational worker program. As a matter of fact, this month, the first group of vocational workers that we hired 18 months ago will transition into civil service. So we're very, very excited to report that we have used 50 entry-level positions. I don't have any more vacancies at this point. I mean, it would be nice if I could get more authorities, of course, so I can hire more. And make no mistake about it, as we transition these employees to, or they promote, we will continue using the TLH as a mechanism to bring more people to the Bureau.
Now, if you actually had hired 50, we'd be way over our numbers. So are they actually part of this program, or are they part of similar programs?
This is the vocational worker program. I through a partnership with LA Trade Tech, LA Trade Tech is working with us as well to train a lot of these entry-level positions, because these entry-level positions require a certain level of training. As you know, the majority of our workers work out there in the middle of the street, so it is very important that they're properly trained, in terms of safety, Cal OSHA, proper use of tools. But these are entry-level people, of course, that came from different parts of the city, including the TLH. But in addition to getting them, we also put them through a very meticulous training to ensure that our customers, the residents of the city of LA, will be safe.
So is there anything you could do to hire from the targeted local hiring program and then put them through this training process?
That's what we're doing at this point, yes. We're hiring TLH. I think we hired 6 so far already. And as more positions, especially clerical, more positions become available, we're going to continue hiring. But at this point, I'm out of vacancy. But we will, like I said, make no mistake about it. We love the program. We're very supportive of the program, and we will continue hiring from this group.
Okay, so you're very clearly committed to
by all
hiring
means.
through it, and the folks that you have to put through other trainings, taking from this program, putting them through the training.
That is correct, Councilman.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Val Meloff. I'm with the Department of General Services. And I'd like to start out by saying that the Department of General Services is very committed to the targeted local hiring program. We are very familiar with vocational worker training programs. We've had one in place in GSD for the last 20 years that we negotiated with the unions with the union at that time. And of the 24 positions that we hired since February, over half of them include workers that fall within the demographics of the targeted local hire program. Now, as we have come up to speed on the targeted local hire program, we are going to go there to fill the classifications that are eligible. Within our department, we have 4. Right now, we have a very limited number of vacancies. We only have 8. Of the 8, we have hired 2, and we are also interviewing for the other classifications through the targeted local hire program. And our goal is to continue to do that in the future.
So the 6 that are remaining that you have on tap now, presumably those would all be hired through targeted local hire.
Hopefully, some percentage of them. One of the things that we're doing is we're working very closely with the personnel department just to make sure that the skill sets that come with the candidates match our needs in the department. We want to sit down and talk to them about we're going to sit down and have a conversation about, as we gain more experience with it, how the program is working, what our needs are, and to see if we can, do what we can to get a better fit between the candidates and our positions and really increase the percentages. But we have a very small number of vacancies right now. We're also limited by the same thing that the general manager from Rec and Parks talked about, which is we have significant salary obligations that we have to meet. So we do need to maintain roughly 26 vacancies, which kind of limits full year vacancies, which kind of limits our ability to hire. And because our salaries we took a reduction in salaries as well this year. Our hiring is by definition going to be a little slower.
But obviously, you're committed with the positions that you have.
But when
to
we
go
get
through
one of
that.
those vacancies, we're going to look to the targeted local hiring program.
And I assume you don't have to just pick the next person on the list. Presumably, if you interview a number of people from this program, you can find people with a skill set that matches your needs more closely. Anyone here from Bureau of Sanitation, by any chance? Oh, I'm sorry. I think it's the wrong department. All right. Any other departments that are here and prepared to speak on their hiring practices? Okay. Any other questions?
No, just that we need to encourage all the departments to be more proactively engaged in this process. I like the commitment of those who've come forward and those who have stepped up. But we just need to do more. We need to do more. We need to do better. And so I'm anxious to work with you, Mr. Chairman, see how we can encourage that. I think those efforts connecting with other organizations, community-based organizations, has been a real value, and I would just encourage more of those kinds of collaborations. I think they help.
Actually, I do have one additional question to ask the CAO if someone could come back up representing that department. So any thoughts on what the steps would need to be to bring some of the current services that we're contracting out for back in-house?
I guess Janelle Irving with the Office of the CAO. In specifics for contract to contract, many departments reported various reasons outside of the scope of what fit on our kind of data compiled Excel sheet. Many of those included whether it was like an administrative code that required a certain thing, a certain contract to take place, or also many departments also reported that the contracts that were provided couldn't be entirely provided by entry-level staff. So in addition, non-entry-level staff, supervisory staff, and other resources would also be necessary to complete the entirety of the scope of work. So I believe that this would be a conversation that we'd want to look at with each department specific to the type of service, as well as looking at what resources would be needed to kind of bring that entire contract back in. And I believe that would be a conversation that would be appropriate to kind of go through our budget process, as a lot of times that is the budget requirements would also be needed to bring position authorities as well as any additional resources they would need back into their operating department.
And that might be a much longer and more complicated conversation that we should bring back to this committee at some future date.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you. Now we have a number of speakers from the public. If we could begin with David Saunders from Local 721, Peter Coons from ACE, and Julia Botello from ACE. And sadly, you will each have around a minute, although I'll give you a few seconds extra to finish.
Can I also make a
whatever
recommendation here?
Certainly.
So, my name is David Sanders, SCA Local 721. I'm also a part of the larger coalition of city unions. If it may expedite the process, we can invite the rest of our coalition members up here also, being asked me, any others here. We do have a presentation, but if not, I will defer to what works best for you.
Hey, I'll do that after we have the next two speakers as well.
Well, again, I thank you for the opportunity to speak here in front of the committee. I want to say this. My concern is, what we have concern with is that I've read the report that came from the personnel department, and I have no empirical data. I have no facts that says there's been 547 new hires since 2015. No data, no factual information whatsoever. I've asked everyone from the CL's office to the personnel department to you name it, and they referred me back to one document and one document only, which is what was spoken about, spoke on with the personnel department representative, that the TPA Mercer, TPA, that does the medical benefits, is the only proof that we have of a net gain of 1,000 employees within the letter of agreement we have with the city. 1,000 that we can say, yeah, maybe that's right. I don't know where this 5,000 or this 4,457 new hires come from. Again, if you can get a response or you can get verifiable evidence, look, we can roll with that. We think the program is a success in the simple fact that the structure has been built with the help of the union partners, along with Ms. Goldberg and personnel, very successful in that area. And what we've been hearing about is that.
And I'll sadly have to ask you to wrap up.
Okay. Well, let me have two requests for you. All right. One is if we can get that information, that'd be great. We can all be on the same page.
But we'll try and help with that.
The second is that in speaking with other departments, I've also spoken to other departments, there seems to be a holdup, and the finger keeps pointing back to the CAO's office, and I've had the conversation with the CAO's office also, is that those positions that we talk about, especially rec and parking, we read in the paper about hepatitis A and how unsafe the parks are. If they could hire the bodies that were swept, you talked about sweeping those positions before, you've given them a position back with no funding. Doesn't make sense. The public safety is at risk. It doesn't align with what the mayor wants to do in terms of the homeless program. It doesn't align with the mayor's public safety program. Park and rec is vital to this, the city. Custodials and general services is vital to the city. We have buildings. We have officers, employees who are emptying their own trash in the city of LA.
Thank you.
It needs to move. I hear the department keep saying they're going to do. Hasn't happened. I don't know where these 4,000 people are.
I have to ask you to wrap up.
Yes.
And I will point out that throughout the budget process, there are a lot of positions that are funded, unfunded, just so that when we have the money, we can fill those positions. If we eliminate unfunded positions, then we can't even fill them when we find the money. So
I just know the 4,000 are the funded positions. At least that's what they're asserting.
I don't disagree with you that those positions should actually be funded, but it's not an unusual process.
Thank you, sir.
So let's see who my next speaker is. Mr. Coons.
Good afternoon, council members. Peter Coons with ACE and the Fix LA Coalition. We have supported these motions because we believe in transparency. We are about to hear some frustration from the community that the conditions on the ground don't actually reflect the reports that you're hearing. And one big concern we have is the agreement was around an aggregate increase to the city workforce, not in total hires. So we have a serious concern that 4,000, whatever number you just heard, is a sham, and that the city is not actually replacing workers that are leaving. We're also concerned about targeted local hire because we're at risk of missing a huge opportunity. It's a real sustainable way of restoring services to communities, especially communities like South LA. But right now we're doing the opposite. And as we can see on the ground, the city is doing scandalous levels of contracting work. Still, you see them all over. You see them fixing the streets. You see them trimming the trees. There's no excuse for it. And we're going to get to the point where court-mandated repairs like the sidewalks, we're not going to have the staff scaled up and trained to do it. And the city's going to say that we're going to have to contract even more. So we're here to advocate that they take this program seriously, and thanks to everyone for all the work they've done so far.
Thank you. Julia Batella.
Oh, sí. Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Julia Botello.
My name is Julia Botello.
Y mi problema es que ya tiene más de un mes una lámpara cerca de conmigo que no prende. Llamo al 311 y pues que van y no han ido. Y ese es mi problema.
My problem is that for over a month I've been trying to get a broken street light fixed on my street, and I call 311 over and over again. They say they're going to fix it, and there's not enough people to do it.
Y la necesitamos porque hay muchos muchachos vagos que aprovechan. Y por eso vengo a quejarme yo con usted.
And we need it because it's this public safety issue. We need to be able to have people to respond and fix these problems when they come up.
Y aparte de eso, vengo a presentar a mi concejal, Mr. Price, que nos acaba de invitar a un banquete que lo que hace cada año para las personas de tercera edad, de cuarta y de quinta. Yo le vengo a agradecer eso, lo que muchas veces la familia no lo hace. Él piensa en nosotros. Yo tengo 95 años, 91, ¿no? 91 años y no me quiero hacer más vieja. Y aprovecho a agradecerle ahorita. Como les digo, lo que la familia no lo hace, él piensa en nosotros, que ya nos estamos yendo. Que Dios me lo bendiga y lo quiero mucho.
And I would also like to
I'd
thank
ask you to wrap up because you're out of time, but I'll let you translate what you said.
I would also like to thank Councilmember Price for again inviting us to the senior banquet that happens every year, because this is an important service that goes for people that don't have the ability to provide it for themselves. So thank you, and I'm 92 years old, about to be 92, and so thank you very much for supporting us.
Que Dios los bendiga y les dé paciencia.
God bless you, and have a lot of patience. Thank you.
And congratulations on doing so well at 92. 91
years old, sorry.
91. Still pretty damn good. Ethel White from ACE, and then Teresa Sanchez from ASME, and Cheryl Parisi from ASME. Welcome. Ethel White.
Yeah, my name is Ethel White, and I stay in L.A. on 5467 6th Avenue. And my driveway, not the driveway, the sidewalk is real bad, tore up. And across the street, 57th Street, all the way down to almost to Slauson, is real bad. It's puckered up real bad. You have to mostly have to go around, you can't walk right on the side. So, it's been like that ever since I've been over there, 2005, and they haven't did anything about it.
What's your address?
5467 6th Avenue. Yeah, so I just, wish somebody come out and fix it, for somebody to trip and fall over it, and hurt themselves. So.
Thank you. And I hate to tell you, but even though we have a substantial amount of funding for sidewalk repair, I think we are on something like a 60-year cycle that will be improved by the funding that we've increased, but it's still probably going to take 25 years before we're close to having good sidewalks. So we will try to get to them as quickly as we can, and obviously hiring more staff will be helpful. Ms. Parisi.
Thank you. I'm going to talk fast. The Assembly member, Councilwoman, our leader, Jackie Goldberg, talked about the culture change that needs to happen in the city of Los Angeles. And I want to sort of get up to the 50,000-foot view of what this program is about and why the city and the Coalition of LA City Unions entered into the agreement. During the depths of the recession, we saw just a dropping out of quality city services being provided to communities. I mean, you hear that from community members. Sidewalks, streets, parks and recs, libraries were closed. I mean, over and over and over again, there were cutbacks in city services that diminished the quality of life in this city for our residents. And the goal was to build back, the goal was service restoration, to do so in a very strategic way and use the targeted local hire program as the vehicle to begin to fill those jobs. Just if you could indulge. What has not happened in this program was the sort of policy piece that has not truly been implemented. In addition to the targeted local hire program and task force, which has been very successful in partnership with the personnel department and under Ms. Goldberg's leadership, we have not developed the strategic workforce development task force, which was to look at the big picture, which was to meet department by department to analyze how they engage in service restoration and look at and to drive the sort of restoration of frontline services, to be strategic about that analysis. And so it's very disturbing to say that 4,000 people were hired. Even the list that we saw of all the vacancies, it's very haphazard. There's nothing strategic about it. And the goal was, again, these two pieces. It was the strategic workforce development task force in conjunction with the tool of the targeted local hire. And so
let me interrupt you to ask you a question. How often has that body met, or is it meeting? What has it been doing?
It met maybe 3 times. There was no real agenda. I don't think it has not been implemented in the spirit and the intensity and I think the true goals of the program, which was to, quite honestly, be a template for budgeting in the future, right? To be able to identify where have the service cutbacks been, how do we engage in service restoration, how do we analyze, succession planning, but also service restoration, and then and drive those decisions through the budget process, that analysis through the budget process, and then utilize targeted local hires the way to fill those entry-level vacancies. And it's quite frustrating to hear this very piecemeal approach that obviously is not producing the kinds of numbers of jobs that we anticipated, but also it's not really implementing the goals of the program, which is to take, again, these really poor part-time jobs. I mean, Rackham Park's Mr. Schultz testified about thousands of workers who were working, some of them year-round in childcare and a whole variety of other programs, non-benefited, bad jobs. Part of the agreement in Executive Directive number 15 was to how do we turn those jobs into good jobs? How do we identify which jobs can become full-time and do that? The excessive use of contract workers. We have a sidewalks program. How many contracts are out? There should be a strategic buildup of that workforce so that we know that we're going to be doing sidewalks for 60 years. That's 2 careers worth of folks, right? We can be hiring now, training those folks, and really developing a whole well-trained workforce that over the course of a 30-year period can restore all of the sidewalks. And so again, these are just opportunities that need to happen, and without the strategic analysis, planning, we're never going to get there. We're going to be talking about this trickle of jobs that are available. And so I really ask that...
I apologize. I have to ask you to wrap up.
Okay.
But
thank you for your indulgence.
which is not to say that we don't totally agree with you. Ms. Sanchez.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and committee members. Teresa Sanchez AFSCME. I just have 2 very quick points. In fact, Mr. Chairman, you've already pointed to it, and that I believe that the policy direction from this committee needs to be to staff to make hiring for the entry-level classifications that we've identified, including administrative clerk, maintenance laborer, gardener caretaker, custodian, garage attendant, and maybe a few others, that the standard operating procedure, or the default system, if you will, should be to use the targeted local hire program to hire office assistants and vocational workers, period. The second directive policy initiative I would request from this committee would be to have the CAO come back to you and have a further explanation or discussion about why the artificial salary savings that everyone has spoken about as a barrier to hiring full-time frontline positions.
And certainly, I'm sure you've all followed the fact that for the last 8 years, I've been trying to get rid of targeted local hiring. I'm not targeted local hiring. Sorry. Managed hiring, and I think this is still a remnant where we've found a way through the back door in the form of salary savings to still have managed hiring, as opposed to just real numbers of people that we hire in a real budget. So I'm sure we will be looking at both those things and more as we move forward. Any other comments?
No
Mr.
comments.
Price?
I think comments were well from our labor friends, and we should take note.
So we will be pushing a number of these issues, and if there's no objection, we will note and file the Personnel Department's report and note and file the other 4 reports, and continue to be on this issue aggressively.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much.
Item number 4. Thank you, everybody, for your testimony.
Item number 4 is a report from the City Administrative Officer regarding substitute and in lieu position authorities needed in the 17-18 budget, fiscal year budget.
Hi.
Good afternoon, Janelle Irving with the Office of the CAO. As part of the 17-18 adopted budget, the CAO was in...
I'll ask everybody that's exiting to do so as quietly as possible. Thank you.
But the CAO was instructed to prepare and present a listing of all substitute authorities and in lieu positions for the 2017-18 year. As this is an informational report, no council action is required.
So I have a few questions. Okay. I'm sure Mr. Price does as well. So can the in lieu authorities for maintenance labor positions in sanitation and the transitional worker in engineering be filled through the targeted local hiring process?
I would defer to those that are more familiar with the exact program, but yes, any authority here provided is really an authority for that exact classification. So as those are eligible classifications to use the targeted local hire program, they're eligible based off the classification.
And also, the CAO proposed an in lieu authority for one senior animal keeper in the zoo department at the very back end of the report for the stated purpose of entry-level training. So how is a senior level position considered entry-level? And does MOU 4 reserve step 1 of the animal keeper classification serve as a trainee classification? How does
Yes,
that work?
step 1 of each one of the classifications is reserved for the training classification.
But to speak to this specific position as well, thank you, Marita. It's to be understood in this specific instance that the zoo registrar is a more specialized position within the zoo, and so they're utilizing staff that they have that they would like to train to be into that position. So although it's not necessarily, there is an animal keeper, which would be considered entry level, and a senior animal keeper is above that. It's for the purposes of training that individual in the zoo registrar functions.
Okay, I mean, I don't know if there's a more appropriate way to categorize it so it doesn't appear that there's an entry-level position for a position that's clearly more senior, but
Okay.
I get
I can
what
work
you're
with
getting at.
the department to reclassify the justification.
And also, substitute authorities are generally used for temporary purposes. So for those identified for peak workload, are these workload needs that are expected to conclude during the current year, or are they expected to be ongoing?
The authorities before you today, we do authorize based off the dates given, and yes, they are to be, for the majority purpose of temporary need. So it is reevaluated once this authority expires. It is reevaluated. If it is considered to be an ongoing need, then we look to the department as well as our CAO analyst to incorporate that as part of the budget discussions and look to make a more permanent
So
fix.
at least for now, they're viewed as temporary
Yes,
needs.
they are, and that's why yes.
Okay. Mr. Price, any additional questions or comments? All right, well, thank you, and we will note and file the CAO's report without objection. Item number 5.
Item number 5 is a report from the City Administrative Officer regarding unfreeze resolution for positions that are required to be held vacant when a vacancy occurs or remain vacant pursuant to the 2017-18 budget.
And before I have you do that, I should note, in case there are people that are here for item number 6, that I would recommend that go on consent without objection. Thank you.
Item number 5.
Item number 5.
Item number 5 before you is related to that admin code section 4.132 states that certain vacated positions may not be filled without specific authorization by council. This resolution essentially provides departments the ability to hire vacant positions except those that are listed in the attachment. These are the positions that we are recommending to remain frozen. Historically, these are positions where there might be a salary, classification, or organizational problem. Section 1 of the report lists the positions that are not authorized to be filled, and Section 2 lists new resolution positions that were not authorized in the 17-18 budget, or they were authorized without funding that we believe or that we are recommending remain vacant until the council takes a further action.
Now, do these departments all agree with these recommendations to remain frozen?
Yes, they are. These have been worked on with the CAO's office as well as the impacted departments, and so some of the positions are they are agreeing or understand that they would be held vacant until a time that potentially it goes back to council with either a report that they're waiting on or some further action by council that then would take it off of this unfreeze resolution.
Do you know why specifically the planning positions are being frozen?
Yes, the planning positions, they're part of the Historic Preservation Overlay Zone expansion, and these positions were provided in the 17-18 budget. The funding for the positions was provided in the unappropriated balance pending the adoption of new fees or increase to existing fees to ensure to provide the full cost recovery. So there is a report that would be coming forward to council that would be discussing the increase to existing fees or the new fees, and then at that time they would ask for the authorization to fill these positions.
How soon will that be happening?
I don't have the exact time frame on that. I believe that they're in process of working on that, but I can look into that and get back to you with when that would be expected.
So if we wanted to send this report on without freezing those positions, would we be able to do so?
Yes, you could alter, make an amendment to, yes, and Jason's here as well, but you could make an amendment to the report and not have those on the list of positions that would require further council approval before being authorized to be filled.
Jason Klein, Department of City Planning. The report to actually get HPOZ fees to full cost recovery is pending before the Budget and Finance Committee. The City Attorney's Office has transmitted the draft ordinance. However, there are additional policy considerations where the council may elect to subsidize those fees, at which point these positions would continue to be unfunded because the funding source in the UB would not be eligible to support these positions. So the positions would continue to be maintained as vacant positions until funding would otherwise be authorized or added to our budget.
So any reason why it would be problematic for us to fund those positions as part of this report?
Outside of the fees going to full cost recovery, it would require an additional general fund appropriation that was not included in the budget, at which point it would open up a budgetary hole. So that's why it's pending in Budget and Finance Committee.
Okay, so if we approve this with those positions unfrozen, what would the practical result be?
They would remain vacant until funding was otherwise authorized in our budget.
Well, that just seems pretty harmless. I might recommend that as a way to help nudge things in the right direction, even though it wouldn't actually result in funding. It would clearly express an interest on the part of the council in doing so.
I'd second that.
Thank you. So that will be the recommendation. We will advance the CAO's recommendation along with a direction to unfreeze the planning positions as well. Do we have any further business before us?
No, sir. No more items.
So all items have been dealt with, so we are adjourned.